Good evening and welcome once again to round number 6 of the Simnet Super Sprint Sunday, brought to you by Formula Racing League. I'm Jack Prentice once again, and thank you for bearing with us. Now, you join us in a bit of a quandary because we have got a practice session before going straight into a race. We've already had qualifying, which you will have seen a little bit earlier on if you were joining us before a session timeout and a red flag had to be thrown to get rid of an errant pit stop. So you can see all the drivers now taking their chance to go and refamiliarise with the track over the next couple of moments or so before we then get to the action of the main action of the event, which is race number 1 followed by race number 2. So if you weren't with us earlier on, race number 1 is a 20-minute sprint to the finish. No pit stops are required. Race number 2 is a 40-minute sprint to the finish with no pit stops required. No reverse grid. Wherever the drivers set their qualifying up, wherever they qualified, then that is where they start for both races. There's a near 40-car grid expected for tonight, and we will take you through the grid in the next couple of moments once the admins have all coded that in. That's Greg Wood, who's the current leader of the AM class, so we'll just take you through once again the colour coordinations of the numbers and what they mean with the pro tier, so the top class, the higher class in terms of speed. Supposedly racecraft is the pro tier, which is the lighter numbers that you see: Morgan, Grace and Vackler, Poshbashil, running just to name but two. The silver class is the greyer number, so that is demonstrated ably by Luke Richings, who's now just going to cross the line to start his one and only lap that he'll be able to set, with the AM class being defined by the red number. As you can see, Jamie Thacker going through the Lesmos now, show in the Ford Mustang, almost Craig Lowndes livery look-alike, with the black, white and gold, or black and silver and gold, the livery there that you can see from the Ford Mustang. Going into the Ascari chicane now with only a minute to go in practice. We should hopefully be towards the race pretty quickly. It shouldn't take that long to actually fill the grid and hopefully get the grid set up once again, and we shall hopefully be racing in just a few moments' time. And just like that, we're back and at the start of race number 1. So we'll take you through the grid in just a short moment, as Jared Vermeulen once again lines up pole position, a rider that he can win the championship today. He just needs to finish somewhere in the top 5 on both occasions to be able to guarantee the Pro Championship once the drop scores come in. Daniel Crossman is second on the grid, as has often been the case this season. The young Englishman putting up a fine challenge to the South African overlord of the Sunday series over the last couple of seasons. On row number 2, Sparkling Brush Tully ahead of Morgan Grace, with Andrew Eden in 5th and Marcel Basler 6th to complete an all-pro top 6. Richard Gearman takes silver pole in 7th ahead of Paul Vidler, the reserve in pro, in 8th. The Ferrari driver looking to go racing from there. Vaclav Pospisil was 9th ahead of Jack Cadet in the Bentley. In 10th position, Johnny Sharp is 11th ahead of Owen Harris on Ampole. In the McLaren there, car 777, there's a bit of a gap over Jeffrey DeFars in 15th, with Johnny Clayton and with Josh Clayton and Gareth Harvey 13th and 14th in the Ford Mustang. Jeffrey DeFars is 15th ahead of Wouter Hyman 16th. Terry Tierney and Lee Colpitts are on row number 9, with Alexander Kalugin and Jack Barnett row number 10. 21st is the Silver Championship leader, which is Brynard Serfontaine. He's ahead of Jamie Thacker in 22nd on row number 11, with Greg Wood and Darren Townsend on row 12. Row 13 is Michael Coppens, and in 26th place Marco Lino, with Serafino Gabino 27th ahead of Jordan Marshall 28th. Chris Gedman is 29th, with Mark Miguel Silva completing row 15. Luke Richings is 31st ahead of Ian Kruger 32nd. Row 17 is Dale Kelleher and Darren Davies, with Dreadlock Steve in 35th ahead of Sam Greaves in 36th. Johnson and O'Leary on row 19, 37th, 38th, with Paul Trotman going from the back in 39th position. So we will just skip to the front, where I remind you no pit stops are required in this 20-minute sprint format, with no pit stops required for the 40-minute feature race that's coming up. 2 races rolled into one here with 30 seconds to go. It's going to be all about acing the start, and if there's anybody that can do it, could be Markel in Brush Tully in 3rd position. That Porsche normally so good at the start, but he'll have 2 formidable Ferraris ahead to get in the way. Vermeulen and Crossman, who are no slouches at the start, will be duking it out into the Rettifilio chicane. We're just at the start of the Parabolica, so these drivers keep to 43 miles an hour, try to warm the tyres up as much as they can, try to warm the brakes up as much as they can. You can see the weaving there and the heavy braking as much as Crossman can to try and build at least a little bit of heat into the tyres. What is a fairly cold track, 19 degrees. So we'll take quite a bit of hard work to get the tyres into any kind of window. So Vermeulen in the bright green Ferrari and Crossman in the largely white, blue and green Ferrari is on the right-hand side. We're with Vermeulen as the cars come to the start. It'll be a longer than usual procedure because of how far down the timing line is. So at the moment, it's a period of waiting. It's a period of waiting, a period of waiting, waiting. There is the timing line. We're waiting, and we are green. And that is a good start from Jared Vermeulen. Crossman's matched him, though, you have to say, and it's looking to be Markel and Bruschulli to try and challenge. He's got in between the 2 Ferraris. They're going to go 3 wide into Rettifilio. Bruschulli looks like he's got ahead of Crossman, and Bruschulli's going to go long onto the brakes. But Vermeulen goes longer now. Vermeulen's going to have to leave space for the competitive Canadian. He does so, and now Bruschulli should get the better exit coming out of the Rettifilio. But he's going to have to go the long way round Curva Grande. There's Strife at the back. R139 is already in the pits, so we'll see exactly what's happened there. Can't quite tell you what's gone on at the moment. It's Terry Tierney who's in the pits and in strife. Markel and Bruschulli, though, is not in strife. He's in the lead going into the Rettifilio. So the Canadian has jumped both Ferraris. Andrew Eden is up to 4th, ahead of Morgan Grace. Marcel Basler is 6th. Richard Gibbon looks like he's kept the silver lead in 7th. He has, the Flying Dutchman, with Paul Vidler in 8th and Vaclav Pospisil in 9th. Goudet looks like he's kept 2nd place in silver as well. So it looks like at least they have been a lot better behaved. Trying to see if there's any other stragglers and strugglers at the back. I can't see anything. Richings looks like he's gained 3 or 4 positions. So I think it is just Terry Tierney who, unfortunately, has bit the dust in race number 1. So out front is Markel and Bruschulli, the Porsche. Very quick in a straight line, certainly off the corners. So the Ferrari of Vermeulen is going to have his work cut out trying to get past him. with Crossman looking behind. It might be a bit of a Kyle Army scenario. Crossman behind might actually try and stay in the pound seat and maybe look to pick up any scraps and scrapes ahead. Brustulli, though, leading through the Parabolica. The Porsche look not known for its handling prowess, certainly in terms of turn-in, but it's here where it should be better and stronger. It's certainly got better traction. The Ferrari, though, is in the slipstream, and Vermeulen looks like he means business, so I would expect that Bristol is going to go to the inside. Is he? He is going to go to the inside. That leaves Vermeulen to go around the outside. Now it's going to be who's the best on the brakes, and it looks at the moment like it might be Vermeulen, but he's going to have to be a bit better than that. Brustulli actually goes slightly wide and misses the apex. There's contact between the two, and that actually might open the door for Daniel Crossman. But round the outside goes Vermeulen. He's going to have to settle in, I would have thought, because he's got Crossman now in behind. It's a long way round at the Curva Grande, but I think Brustulli is going to be able to cover him off just for the moment. This is all playing into the hands of the ever-fast Lexus of Andrew Eden. So they are side by side and nose to tail, aren't they? Through the Roger chicane. Brustulli's actually going to be, is he going to be champion? No, not quite. Thought Vermeulen might have the run going into the Lesmo corners, but it's all going to close up lovely for even Morgan Grace is now caught onto the back. He was 1.1 back at the start of the lap, but he's now a lot closer than that. He goes slightly wide, does Brustulli. He's now going to try and break the toe, weaving a bit. He's going to have to be careful with the weave to make sure it's not too excessive. Down the hill we go and into Ascari. Brustulli, Vermeulen looks like he's going to have a run, but it's blocked off again by Marco Brustulli. Wide goes Jaron Vermeulen. Wide goes Jaron Vermeulen. He's third. He's third. It's Daniel Crossman who's got up into second position now, and I think there's going to be further strife for the Ferrari, is there? No. Andrew Eden doesn't look like he's got the run. Actually, he's got Morgan Grace to deal with in fourth position. So it's Crossman now up into second. He's the next challenger to Marcelin Brustulli. So Brustulli's got a new competitor to come at him, and it certainly looks like the Porsche is going to be bothered for most of this race. Further back, Owen Harris has retained the AM lead. Richard Gearman has Jack Gaudet behind him, so Gearman's dropped back to Vidler, or lost out to Vidler, sorry. He's dropped back to 8th, with Owen Harris in 14. So Harris doing a really good job. As round the outside goes Daniel Crossman to try and see if he can catch the Canadian of Marcelin Brustulli out. He has. Off goes Marcelin Brustulli, and he's let Daniel Crossman through. He's blocked off Vermeulen, and that's going to leave Eden around the outside. Don't think it's going to happen there for Eden, but Crossman goes into the lead, and Brustulli threatened to do that earlier on. He threatened to go long on the brakes earlier on. He has gone long on the brakes, and that is first place for Daniel Crossman. He's going to have to get away like a scolded cat. As up the inside goes Vermeulen on Andrew Eden. It looks like further trouble for the South African, who has lost out to Andrew Eden, as Brustulli gets a good run off of Valerianti Roger, and side by side into the Lesmo they go. The Canadian, there is a bit of contact there between the Canadian and the Englishman, but I think the Englishman's going to hold on. He is into the second Lesmo. Not the best place to try and overtake, but if you get a good run, then Brustulli might be in business into Ascari. There's a little left-handed kink to deal with first of all. Down the hill they go, and Crossman quite rightly goes to the inside to cover it off. Around the outside it's going to be Brustulli. No, he's going to go down the inside. He's going to have a run. He's not going to have a run, as Crossman is able to brake just that little bit later, and Marcelin Brustulli is forced to concede first place for the moment. But the Canadian has been long on the brakes in both of the first two laps. First that he's been in the lead, and Crossman now looking to see if he can get away and see if he can scamper and leave Brustulli to hold up what is Andrew Eden in the Lexus now. And Jaron Vermeulen has dropped back to fourth. Not what the South African wanted, but it's not a disaster. Paul Vidler, meanwhile, is having a go at Vaclav Pospisil. So he's gone wide somewhere, because Pospisil is 10th. He's got Josh Clayton now behind in 10th now. Morgan Grace is a man that's gone off somewhere. Where has Morgan Grace gone? He's back in 16th. He's behind Jack Barnett, so he's not 16th, is he? He is 17th. He's going to be 16th once again, as Morgan Grace there, having been 5th earlier on. We didn't see what happened to him at all. No yellow flags or anything were mentioned, so we'll see where that's gone wrong. But the upshot is that Richard Gearman is in 6th, leading the silver class, but he's got Gaudet all over him. Gaudet, who's been a reserve in the silver class, been impressive in his previous outings, and looks to be a step ahead here as he goes round the outside of Richard Gearman. Gearman rather surrenders that going into the Variante Roger. But round goes Josh Clayton. There's contact there. I wonder if it was contact with Paul Vidler. Vidler was 3/10 behind. and Vidler has, I think, also been held there. So I do wonder, is Paul Vidler has also stopped on circuit. So I do wonder if those two, perhaps, their devices have been linked. A good rejoin there from Josh Clayton, it must be said. It's going to be a little solace to because it's ahead of Dreadlock Steve. Now, Dreadlock Steve is back in 34th position. 33rd it will be now because Vidler's recovering there. So that turns what was a strong outing for Josh Clayton into a bit of a disaster, really, with just over half the race to go. Paul Vidler there dropping like a stone as well, it must be said. So a consequence there of a potential collision. Meanwhile, Vermeulen going up the inside, is he, of Andrew Reid, and he is not going into the parabolic. And you can see there, Crossman, once you're able to get ahead of Bristolli, the Ferrari is able to get away with Bristolli strong off of corners, but not so strong in them and not as strong down the straight. So the Porsche is going to be on the back foot once again. Here comes the supersonic Lexus in a straight line. He's going to go round the outside. There's a Ferrari there pulling off. I don't know what that was, but Dale Kelleher was leaving the pits, and round the outside goes Andrew Reid, and he's going to block the exit of Barclay Bristolli. Good drive from the pair of them. That's going to set up Jared Vermeulen to try and have a go around the outside at the Curva Grande, because the Porsche is all over the Lexus. The Lexus is going to make him work for it around the long way he goes. Going to be able to cover the inside. Is he potentially going into Roger? He is, you know, but he doesn't need to, as the Porsche now going side by side once again with Vermeulen. Again, just edging the South African driver out. These two will know each other inside out and back to front by the time this race is over. Round the outside, he goes into the Lesbos now, as he'll have to try and set him up. He is going to set him up, you know, because, oh, that's a cut across, isn't it, from Bristolli. He does not want to lose yet another position, as the Canadian's been going backwards since he got into the lead earlier on. But I think this might be the end of his hold on the podium, because Vermeulen has got through down the straight, and now they're going to go side by side again into Ascari. Vermeulen is able to hold on, and that is third position for the South African Ferrari driver. And I think that might be a bit of a save there, but Bristolli reversing headlong down the field, and he's got Marcel Basler behind. Basler, whose pace is a lot higher than his championship position, in the fifth position, the German, who, as you can see there in the German tricolour liveried Ferrari, as Jack Cadet has got past Richard Gimmer, which we saw earlier on, but he's got a second on Richard Gimmer as well. So this is very good for anybody driving a Bentley in the upcoming races, but this is exactly what he is all about. He's shown a good turn of pace whenever he has been able to compete in Formula Racing League, and sixth position round here in that Bentley represents an uptick in fortune. Meanwhile, so we've got a podium finisher, a new podium finisher in third position in Silvery's 13th is Lee Colpitts. He's going to have a go at the leader in the AM class. Owen Harris is back up into 12th position, so he's not gone away. Lost out of Wouter Heijmans, but Heijmans had qualified out of position earlier on when he had qualified 16th, I think 16th, 17th on the grid, wasn't he, the Dutchman? So he's passed Owen Harris, but Harris in 12th, and 12th will do very nicely, thank you very much, because it is a lead in the AM class. Jeffrey DeFass has dropped back a few positions, actually behind Greg Wood, his championship rival, whereas Jack Barnett towards the back of the AM class, it should be said, but a good position so far. He's second, he's 15th, he's second in the AM class, which you can see by the red marked number. And he's doing a good job. He's got Renat Serfontaine behind him, Kalugin and Wood side by side. There was somebody off in the gravel behind, but I think that's all worked itself out, hasn't it? So no need to worry there. I think as Terry Tierney is back out of the race, Dale Kelleher 4 laps down, so do wonder what's happened to the Mancunian there, but out on the circuit he is, and in the pack he is. So you can see just ahead of Coppens. Coppens, another man to have dropped back a little bit further, as has Chris Gepman. You can see the Porsche being a little bit scuffed up in the hands of the Flying Scotsman. So up to Gordon Brown. Now I want to find him if I can, because he is championship rival for not Wouter Heijmans, for Renat Serfontaine. Trying to find his car 134. I wonder if he's the driver that's retired. Is out, because we didn't have 40, it's only 39. I know he was racing injured. Marcel Basler, though, has gone off. Trying to find him. Richard Gibbon we're at now. So Basler, where is he? Is he disconnected? I think Marcel Basler is disconnected. That's a disaster for the German. I was just talking up his chances. But Basler has gone backwards somewhere. We don't know where he's disappeared to. But Basler now back, as we've seen now that Jared Vermeulen has got past Andrew Eden is now going to set about Daniel Crossman. This would be some win if he could get it, wouldn't it? Because he was fourth and looking beaten up and outmanoeuvred everywhere he went. But he's now got past the Lexus of Andrew Eden, who has retained third position. And Vermeulen now 2.4 seconds off the back of Daniel Crossman. He's got round about 5 laps, I think, to get through into the lead. But Crossman is no slouch, as he's shown at Kyle Army. If there's a win there, he'll take it. Indeed, he took a deserving win as well at Snetterton in controversial circumstances, where he held off the South African until the last lap with a bit of contact there, engineering the victory. Vaclav Pospisil, meanwhile, stuck behind Richard Gibbon, two of the nice guys on the grid and two of the cleanest guys in terms of combat. But the Czech driver, 0.2 of a second behind Richard Gibbon. So Gibbon in 6th position now, second in silver. So an elusive win. He had a double win, didn't he, a couple of rounds ago, but you would expect with the pace that he's shown to be up in the championship hunt, but he's not been able to put it all together. But Gibbon, this would be another good show, wouldn't it? 6th place, second in silver. Keep an eye on the lead gap, because it has come down a couple of tenths, so I do wonder if Vermeulen is starting to warm to the task. Meanwhile, speaking of warming to the task, Wouter Heijmans is certainly warming to the 9th place task. He's 10th, but he's only a 10th of a second behind Gareth Harvey. So Heijmans was one to really qualify out position, wasn't he, in 16th? It's not always been his strong point. The one shot qualifying is certainly more of a rhythm drive. I think David Coulthard, who famously hated one lap qualifying, but was a lot better in the longer format. But Heijmans now trying to see if he can get ahead of that Ford ahead. It's a huge car, isn't it? Certainly a huge undertaking to try and get around the outside there. Morgan Grace, meanwhile, was caught up to lead Colpitts. Colpitts there being the central driver that he is, won't be getting involved in things that don't matter, but he certainly won't just open the door. Might be worth, though, seeing if Grace could open the door for him, try and get past Owen Harris, although at the end of the day it is academic with the two silver drivers ahead of Lee Colpitts, quite a way ahead, and certainly towards the top echelons of the standings. Galugin, meanwhile, up in 17th. So the Russian, I said earlier, was looking to try and sign off with, well, not sign off, but certainly improve his standings, certainly improved form. He has done. He's 17th, having had a really difficult season so far, but he's 5th in silver, so we should praise him, because it's not been the easiest of seasons for him. And whilst he has got company from Jeffrey Defarge behind in the AM class, it certainly shouldn't be unsaid that this is a much improved performance. Greg Wood, meanwhile, looking to see if he can get second place, as Marco Lino going off in the background but rejoining safely. Greg Wood in 16th, but third in the AM class. It's all over Jack Barnett like a cheap suit. And Wood in the Aston Martin, it's not the fastest, it's not the best off corners, but it is a bit of an all-rounder and certainly a fairly pleasant car to drive. Has got the Ford in front of him, who is not a pleasant car to overtake. Meanwhile, the lead gap, we said we'd look at it. Look at it we will, because Vermeulen has caught the back of Daniel Crossman. Crossman, meanwhile, certainly has to re-engage, you would say, because whilst Vermeulen has been out and out the quickest driver so far, you'd have to say that over a second in a couple of laps is not what the doctor ordered for the leader. We're going to go back to the battle between Wood and Barnett. The Aston Martin gaining in slipstream. Is it going to be enough? He's going to have to be very daring on the brakes. We know how good it is on the brakes, but Vermeulen, Barnett covers the line well enough, and the Ford Mustang proves equal to the task on this occasion. Good driver from the pair of them, second and third, and Barnett, this would be a welcome result for a driver who's deserved better results than he's been able to get so far. It's Darren Townsend in 5th. He's got to stay there, really. He's got a decent gap to Thacker Davies and Dreadlock Steve. That is Luke Richings getting out of the way, so Richings is another man to have come to grief going through the chicane. So he drops back. That won't be a penalty, will it? Because he's still got Clayton behind. He was already behind or ahead of Clayton. Clayton making his way back through the field after earlier skirmish, I think, with Paul Vidler. But will be corrected if I'm wrong. Darren Townsend, meanwhile, going off and into the stones, but not losing any class positions. It's Serafina Gabino that goes through there, and he is only a rival in the overall sense. Johnson behind as well in the Porsche, driving very well. The reserve, new to the championship he has been, but 23rd and certainly in the mid-pack of the silver class. Very much what the doctor ordered, with the lead gap now being half a second. It's not half a second, it is minus half a second. He's got past, didn't see where, I suspect it was at the Parabolica, but the Ferrari duo now duking out. Vermeulen once again returns to his normal position. They're side by side, the South African and the Englishman. Who's going to be the best on the brakes? Bulan goes slightly long. Does he? No, he just about brings it in. But Grossman has to go the long way round and is shut out. And I think that is probably lights out London, as Marklin Brush-Tully, the leader earlier on, has been caught, hasn't he, now, by the silver driver of Goudet. Goudet, who was a reserve. This would be a really impressive win if he could get it, but imagine if he could top that off with the top four. 9/10 of a second behind Brush-Tully, who have been talking a pretty good game in chat previously, so we'll see what Canadian has to say for himself a little bit later on, I say in jest. But the Porsche there, yeah, certainly looking very uncomfortable through the Variante Roger, when I can get my words out, but Roger there is Darren Townsend. I said he had to stay in the hunt for certainly a good points finish in the AM class. He's not doing that because he's got to drive through for track limits inside 17.5 minutes. So the Welshman there has gone off somewhere, hasn't he? Because that is, he's gone off again, isn't he? So that is disaster really for Darren Townsend. What was fifth is now going to be retirement, but to be honest, he might as well have retired as soon as that drive-through came in, because he was only ever going to end up in last. So that is damaging really for his medal prospects in the AM class. Townsend, he's been a solid AM driver now for a good couple of seasons, but not to be on this occasion. Today, meanwhile, it's the Bentley with probably the best sound and the best engine on the grid, behind the best traction system in the Porsche. So we'll see now. The Bentley looking very quick, with the leaders now on their final lap. The Bentley looking very quick indeed in the hands of Goudet. I'll have to talk to him about Tuesday, but that's a matter for another day, as Goudet now in the slipstream as Brush-Tully moves to the right-hand side to try and cover it off. He has struggled on the braking going into turn number one. The Porsche goes long into the corner, but he holds on, so that should be third place retained. As Andrew Meaden has dropped back in the Lexus at an alarming rate. I wonder if that's the tyre troubles that often afflict the Lexus coming to play there, with Eden struggling to make an impact certainly on those ahead, which you would expect given he's in a Lexus, but does have dropped off just that little bit. He's lost another couple of tenths. I think he'll be glad to see this race finish, but Eden there in third position. He should be fine, because the speed that car's got, he'll be okay, and it does look like there's a bit of damage there, so I do wonder if he's had a chat with another object, but it wouldn't have caused him a lot more problems than to drop back just a couple of seconds. I think it just is the car giving up a little bit, with the lead duo now separated by a second and in customary fashion. Well, he's had to work hard for this, Sheriff Mullen, isn't he, in victory? But victory, it looks like it will be. Lee Colpitts, meanwhile, is only a tenth or so behind Owen Harris. So Harris now holding off the BMW. BMW getting right in his wheel tracks. Morgan Grace not able to pass either of these after his strong early race form. But is the BMW going to be able to get past? He's not going to take any silly risks, Colpitts. He's not known for his head-loss driving, so known for his sensible, calm demeanour behind the wheel, as off goes Owen Harris, leading in the AM class. He's not leading anymore. He's dropped back. He's crashed at the Ascari chicane. I can only assume he took too much curb through the right-hander, but he is off and out of the race, and that is the AM class lost for Owen Harris. And I think we're still going for another lap, aren't we? So it is one more lap to go. Well, at least he's not crashed on the last lap, but he might as well have done. He's buried himself in the fence, and unfortunately for Owen Harris, that is a good chance at a win gone, but it does promote his stablemate Greg Wood up into the lead of the AM class, and Jeffrey DeFast has got past Jack Barnett. So Barnett's dropped back into fourth, but he'll be third again by the time Harris sorts himself out. Morgan Grace, meanwhile, gets past Lee Colpitts. That's only for position on track. That's not for any class position, so that's not going to matter too much. But Owen Harris, well, disaster, really. Absolute disaster for the Englishman, who was leading the race in the AM class and winning at a canter. But winning at a canter, he is not anymore. And it's Greg Wood who's going to inherit a rather fortuitous class win. But he's been there, that's what he's built his season on, which has been picking up points and picking up the pieces. And once again, the Englishman, a former commentator no less, has done just that. Get himself into the position, if others make mistakes, you make sure that you capitalise. That's what he's done, and Jeffrey DeFast behind can only watch as the Englishman goes on to take another class win. And we'll see now if there's any movement between Vaclav Pospisil. Another man getting it all sideways over the curbs. It's the Ascari chicane. And he will finish in 7th position, you would expect. But it's going to be, as ever, Thuz. It is Jared Vermeulen crossing the line to win again in the Formula Racing League Super Sprint Sunday. He wins race 1, but he had to work for it this time. It does not tell the story. He dropped to 4th earlier on, but he survives to take the victory. Daniel Crossman, as ever, is 2nd. The bridesmaids to Jared Vermeulen, with Andrew Eden in 3rd and Mark Librachilli 4th. Great class win for Goudet. The silver reserve driver, Jack Goudet, and the Bentley rightly happy with that. Richard Gimman is 2nd and 6th overall, but 2nd in the silver class. Vaclav Pospisil comes across the line to take 7th ahead of Johnny Sharp and Wouter Hyman's. Going to be a class win for Greg Wood in 14th in the AM class. He finishes ahead of Alexander Kalugin and Jeffrey DeFart. So Vaclav Pospisil 7th ahead of Johnny Sharp in 8th. Wouter Hyman's in 9th ahead of Gareth Harvey with Morgan Grace in 11th. 2nd in silver for Lee Colbert with Renard 7th and recovering to 3rd in the silver class. Alexander Kalugin was able to take 4th in silver in 15th ahead of Jeffrey DeFart. Marcolino in 17th ahead of Johnson in 18th, with Serafino Gabino 19th and Jordan Marshall 20th. Josh Clayton was 21st ahead of Luke Richings, with Jack Barnett 23rd, 4th in the AM class, ahead of Jamie Thacker and Dreadlock Steve. Darren Davies was 26th ahead of James O'Leary. Chris Gedman, who's still going round to take the acclaim with the crowd. Paul Vidler was 29th after further dramas later on. Sam Greaves in 30th ahead of Michael Coppens. Paul Trotman, Bian Kruger 33rd ahead of Miguel Silva, and Terry Tierney in 35th, who went off on lap number 1. Owen Harris in 36th. We saw crashing out earlier on. Darren Townsend retired after a drive-through penalty ahead of El Kelleher and Marcel Basler. We shall be back very shortly for race number 2. welcome back to race number 2. So we can see the starting grid, which is the same as it was for race number 1, but I'll run you through it anyway with Jared Vermeulen on pole ahead of Daniel Crossman. Marklin Brustilli, who made such a fist of it at the start, but was only able to finish 4th in the end. He's 3rd ahead of Morgan Grace. In 4th, the Welsh driver who faded after an earlier off. Andrew Eden, 3rd place in race number 1. Will he be able to go any better in the Lexus? Is in 5th position ahead of Marcel Basler 6th, Richard Gibbon 7th ahead of Paul Vidler in 8th, Vaclav Pospisil 9th ahead of Jack Gaudet in 10th. Johnny Sharp is 11th ahead of the AM class pole sitter Owen Harris, who crashed in the lead so heartbreakingly late on. Josh Clayton is 13th ahead of Gareth Harvey in 14th, with Jeffrey DeFast in 15th ahead of Fouts Hyman 16th, Terry Tierney and Lee Colbert 17th and 18th ahead of Alexander Kalugin and Jack Barnett in 19th and 20th. Renat Cerf and Taylor will go from 21st ahead of Jamie Thacker, with Greg Wood 23rd, Darren Townsend 24th, hoping to avoid drive-through penalty that he got a little bit earlier on. Michael Coppins is 25th ahead of Marco Lido 26th, with Serafino Gabino 27th and Jordan Marshall 28th. Row 15 is Chris Gebman and Miguel Silva, with Luke Richings 31st and Vian Kruger 32nd, Del Kelleher 33rd and Darren Mark Davies in 34th. Fredlock Steve will go from 35th ahead of Sam Greaves in the Silver Reserve in 36th, with Martin Johnson in 37th, no, Matt Johnson, sorry, 37th it was, although some was disconnected. James O'Leary in 38th. Will Trotman will go from 39th, as we'll try and see who has disconnected. Try and see, it might well be, so I can see it now, but we'll see if it was a little bit earlier on or a little bit later on, because there's no way to accurately tell. But 40 minutes, no pit stops here, and if the Vermeulen can finish as he did previously, then you would expect that he'll be able to wrap up the championship. But if Marklin Brustilli can get ahead once again, then we will once again have a race. The competent Canadian, never shy of anything to say in or indeed out of the cockpit, and he'll be looking to see if he can hold on a little bit better than he was able to before. So we shall see now as we are about to get going. Car 139, that's Tierney in the pits, with the pit lane start, and Dreadlock Steve having started from the pits, being car 666. So a couple of drivers will be moving 2 steps forward, with Steve in 35th, right, the other 2 behind him, and Terry Tierney going from what was 17th. He will promote Lee Colpitts and Alexander Kalugin up the order. So just waiting now as we go round the Parabolica to start the race, with the drivers warming their tyres up. They're actually not doing an awful lot of that so far, but they were going around the Parabolica. Not much you can do at 43 miles an hour as we wait for the timing line, because that will be green, and we are green. The Jared Vermeulen does make a good start once again as far as the Ferrari is concerned, but you can look at Marklin Brustilli. He's going to have a run again as it's closed off between the 2 Ferraris ahead. He's going to look to the inside now to try and make it 3 wide. I'll hope they get through all together, but Daniel Crossman looks like once again he's lost out as Brustilli gets to the inside and gets to the lead once again. So he'll have the advantage in being on the inside for the Curva Grande that's just coming up, but Vermeulen's going to check. Troll, dearie me, he gets out of shape, and that is going to let the Ferrari through around the outside, and he's not going to get into the lead. He covers the inside for Daniel Crossman. Crossman's now going to go to the outside, going into Variante Roger, as Brustilli now looks to hang on for all his might. He's going to go back to 3rd, I think. He's going to run into the side of Crossman if he's not careful, but running off is Jared Vermeulen. There's further contact there. That's Darren Townsend going into the back of Jack Barnett. Johnny Sharp is involved as well. We'll go back there, but that looks an unholy mess going into Roger. Around the outside goes Daniel Crossman. Morgan Grace has got up into 4th position ahead of Andrew Eden and Marcel Basler. Looks like Richard Gearman has dropped out somewhere, because Jack Gaudet is unchallenged at the top of the silver class. And we'll see now car 69 in the pits. Who's car 69 in the pit lane? I can't quite see. It's Johnny Sharp who's in the pits. And there's further trouble at the back, because car 666 is Dreadlock Steve, and he's recovering from, that's a pit lane start, isn't it, with Terry Tierney also recovering from a pit lane start. Richard Gearman has dropped all the way back to 37th, though. So we'll see what's happened to the Dutchman, and once again unable to put it together across 2 races. Car looks fairly clean, so I only think he might have got spun and had to wait. There's a little bit of damage at the front, but nothing too major. As we can see now, yeah, you can see further problems. That's Lee Colpitt's round. I don't know how he's got there in that angle, but the BMW is going to have to recover from what was second in the silver class. But second he is no more. There's further contact, I think, as Josh Clayton now comes into the pits, having been beaten up, banged and crashed into and walloped. As there's another Mustang coming into the pits as well. We'll see who that is. And that is, I think, car number 13. So unlucky for plenty, it would appear, on this occasion. Plenty of drivers there with their race pretty much ruined. Josh Clayton as another man to have fallen victim to a collision that might not have been his fault. It looked like he was involved in something that wasn't really on him. Marklin Brush-Tully, though, having dropped back to third already, means that any facade of a battle for the lead for the Canadian has long since disappeared. It's Andrew Eden in fourth, so Morgan Grace has got off again. He's now back to eighth. Paul Vidler up into fifth place. There's a little bit card or contact happy earlier on from reports, but the Ferrari driver in fifth position making a better fist of things now, although he's going to have a slightly wide coming out of the Lesmos, and he's going to have Jack Gaudet up behind him. Gaudet in the silver class, he's racing for he's racing for everything really, because he's got the class win already. He goes down the inside, but he's got no championship to think of. He doesn't quite make it stick on this occasion, and the Ferrari able to clamber and clout the curbs, actually see if he can get after Andrew Eden ahead. But Gaudet in sixth he's got a decent gap, hasn't he, to Marcel Basler, who's not had quite the strife that he had previously, with Morgan Grace in eighth ahead of Baccarat Boschke. Owen Harris now is where he was before, at the sharp end of a really strong race and leading the AM class. He's going to have to hope really, though, that he doesn't have any more hiccups like he had before. Jeffrey DeFast, though, is in second in AM and 11th on the road, and he's just ahead of Greg Wood. Wood in 14th. That's important for the AM Championship, with a couple of drivers now leaving the pits, Clayton being one of them. Who's that now leaving? It was car 413. That's Gareth Harvey and Josh Clayton. So those two who were part of the same stable really. As off goes Owen Harris just through the first chicane. He's now going to have to do some defending as Jeffrey DeFast looks to have a go round the outside of McLaren, but is unable to make anything sit. Paul Trotman has come into the pits after crashing earlier on, so he's going to have his work cut out to get any kind of strong result, with the only drivers towards the back actually all being pro drivers getting caught up in that. But Townsend did see the pink McLaren getting involved with Jack Barnett. I can't see, he is now back in 33rd, and whilst there's not an awful lot of damage on there, just damaged 2 races. Have a look at the inside of the Ford in front of him. That's Darren Davies, with Terry Tierney now making his way through the field after a pit lane start due to a sanction from the previous race. Meanwhile, up front, it's Vermeulen leading by a second, and he's got a second over 2 seconds over Daniel Crossman, with Brush-Tully a further 2 seconds back. So it's a second a lap. That gap is extending by, and you would suspect that the South African will have relatively few problems should he not make any mistakes. And after saying the mistakes very rarely in his vocabulary, the green car number 1 Ferrari, as the race now settles down. Walter Hyman's has dropped as well, hasn't he? So I'm just trying to see. I thought it was car 777, but that's obviously Owen Harris, so he's dropped back to 27th as well, the Dutchman. So again, unable to put it together across a whole event, even if he has had some strong races so far. Here comes Jeffrey DeFast, though, for the lead of the AM class. McLaren versus McLaren, white versus purple. Down the inside goes DeFast, and this again will be pretty crucial for the lead of the AM Championship, but he pulls out relatively early. That's fairly meek attempt at trying to get past Owen Harris, able to easily cover off by going a lot later on the brakes. And Greg Wood is doing battle with, that is a lapped Gareth Harvey. So Harvey in the Pro class will want to get away from Greg Wood, and Wood won't want to be getting involved in any shenanigans he doesn't need to be getting involved in. It's Jamie Thacker in 13th in the Ford. He's got Jack Barnett just behind Chris Getman in 15th. So Barnett having a strong couple of races so far, 5th in the AM class, as a tale of, well, 5 AMs interrupted really by a lapped pro go from 10th all the way back to 14th. Chris Geppen, another solid showing. He's actually second in silver, but he's 15th behind 5 AMs. So that tells you how well matched, or how evenly matched, sorry, all the classes are. It really isn't a lot between the drivers from track to track. So DeFast now having another go at Harris. Is he? No, not quite. He's able to try and line him up going into Ascari, and well, Harvey will have to get out of the way at some point because he's receiving plenty of blue flags in front of Greg Wood, who is over his knowledge of the rule book amongst other things as well, but he won't want to be being held up, and if he does feel he is being held up, then he is within his rights to ask the question, with Harvey not at the moment, but he is starting to get away at this moment in time, so perhaps I'm being a little bit premature upon sight of the blue flags. But here comes Jeffrey DeFast out of the final corner at Parabolica into the slipstream once again of Owen Harris. He's going to see if he can have another go down the inside of the McLaren. Not the strongest on the brakes, so up the inside he goes, and again pulls out a lot earlier, gets on the brakes a lot earlier than Owen Harris. He's not yet willing to have a go, but with Harvey now getting behind and actually trying to get into the race, he might catch up, and he might kind of force the issue for DeFast, because he won't want to be held up, and he is within his rights to unlap himself should he see fit. But at the moment, these two, bit of shadow boxing between the top two in the AM class. We're going to go to 5th place overall, because that is the ever impressive Jack Gaudet in the Bentley, who's certainly having a good day, isn't he, at the top of the silver class. And in 5th overall, he's got Paul Vidler behind him, but more pressingly, he's got Marcelin Bruchtulli directly ahead. Bruchtulli in 4th position, again having dropped back behind Andrew Eden, so Eden in the Lexus able to get up into 3rd position. The Porsche not enjoying the race conditions, even if he was particularly strong in qualifying, the Canadian, although not looking particularly impressive over those curves either, so I wonder if that Porsche is a little bit ill-handling, even with more fuel on board. But the Bentley now of Gaudet has plenty to race for, because he's not got a championship to think about, so he's just got to think about how high can I get. Going to go to the outside here as Bruchtulli goes defensive, and there is a bit of contact there between the Canadian and Gaudet, and that's going to allow Paul Vidler through. Vidler now is going to get up the inside of Gaudet, and it won't cost him much in terms of positioning class, because the next car back is Chris Geppen in 15th, but it will cost him a shot at 4th position. Just getting a little bit excited there, Gaudet, as he tries to turn into the corner, although the Bentley is getting away from the Ferrari, so he's actually going to regain 5th position, although Vidler, known for being one of the more aggressive drivers, isn't on this occasion able to make anything happen, and he does try to make things happen wherever he can, Paul Vidler, but not on this occasion. He's got ahead of Marcel Basler and Morgan Grace, so this 4-5 cars locked in the battle for 4th, with Bruchtulli very much at the head of it, and letting Andrew Eden leave quite a lonely race, it must be said. So let's see now, Jeffrey DeFast has got past Owen Harris, has he? No, not quite. They were ahead going into the final sector, but it's Gareth Halvey that's actually given him a bit of jip trying to get past. So road driver trying to pass AM driver. It's a bit of a hopeless task really for Gareth Halvey, who's just got to sit there and make sure that he doesn't make any contact with what is effectively the lead of the AM class, and the AM driver that's in front of him has actually got a bit of a say in the championship, so there is a bit of pressure on Harvey not to mess it up, but driving well he is, even if Harris is now actually starting to get away as DeFast gets a bit ragged, goes wide off out of second last man. Oh, is he going to defend Harvey? I would suggest it's not the sensible thing to do here. You might as well let him go and see if he can cause havoc ahead. Harvey going to the inside to unlap, and it's going to cost DeFast time either way, and he does let Harvey through. So Harvey's now going to go and be Owen Harris's problem in the Ford Mustang. He does actually cut the track, but it's not going to cause any issues, I'm sure, as Greg Wood goes off and takes an alternative line through the Varianti Ascari. Wood now in 12th position, and the Aston Martin is looking to see if he can build on victory earlier on. So Demi Thacker has dropped back. He's still in combat with Jack Barnett, so these two having a pretty understated race, but 4th and 5th they are. They've got Chris Geppmann behind, so Geppmann is looking pretty handy in the Porsche, isn't he? He's certainly looking useful coming out of the Parabolica, and in down the straight we go, although it's a tall order for the Porsche to get past the Ford Mustang. It's a bit like David trying to take on Goliath. David doesn't win very often, and Barnett there gets out of the back to make sure he doesn't get into the back of Jamie Thacker, but it's Marco Lino in 16th. It's actually third in class ahead of Greaves and Riching, so plenty of silvers in and around from 15th to 19th. Yeah, Kruger is the outlier really between Gabino and Kalugin. Kruger in 20th now is actually 6th in class, but doing a good job. The South African driver, one of many drivers who've recently got into the championship and making a good account of themselves. Off goes. Is that Owen Harris? Was that Owen Harris? It was not. It was not. It's me getting excited for no reason, but there was potentially a McLaren or a Porsche off in the distance. There's Sam Greaves, who's got that is a Ferrari going around him. Who's that? That is, well, it's not Luke Richings. Greaves is the man that's gone backwards. The Ferrari that's got off, we don't have an idea yet who that is. Might have been Wouter Heijmans. No, it might have been Coppens. I think it might have been Michael Coppens with Miguel Silva in the Ferrari. No, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. It's Bugger's Bubble trying to guess. So, but we can see the winner at Serpentine drop back to 33rd. Second last in class. This would not be what the doctor ordered for the South Africans Championship hopes. With Gordon Brown watching on injured, unable to race and compete due to that ankle injury. Did actually qualify slightly higher, but the pain proving too much for a man injured in the rock climbing competition. We hope that he can get back for next week, where he will have a championship to contend with. The McLaren going up the inside of that might be Darren Mark Davies ahead, so that is a position change, I think, it's Townsend going up against Davies, separated from Davies and behind James O'Leary. So O'Leary has Townsend behind. We've got the battle for 30th. He's just as hard fought as a battle for first. Townsend going down the inside in the pink McLaren. Is he going to get a run on O'Leary? No, he isn't, because O'Leary's going to go a lot longer on the brakes and he's going to make it stick. Fair play to the Irishman. He's able to continue in 30th just at the moment. Richard Gibbon, you can see, only 29. So yet to really know what happened there. It looks like there might have been a bit of contact from the back. Looking at that, the poor fella has certainly got rear end damage. As we go to the battle at the front, that is Vaclav Pospisil right behind Marco Brustili. So Brustili's dropped a couple of positions again. He's dropped back behind Gaudet. He's dropped back behind Marcel Basel, the Canadian. It's all going wrong, isn't it, for the Canadian, one of the more experienced drivers in league racing, according to his CV. So we'll see whether or not he can use that experience to beat a challenge off from Vaclav Pospisil. Pospisil only second himself, clear of Grace and Vidler, so those two behind one of the more progressive drivers on the grid. So you don't really want to invest in those about. There is a AM driver that's dropped out. So who's that's dropped out? Because we can see, well, there was Harris, there was DeFast. I think Owen Harris has dropped out. I don't know whether the lobby's crashed or anything. There is a couple of drivers dropping out now, so I suspect that this may be Canada. There's a few drivers that have dropped out and off the grid. Car 84 is one of them. That is Daniel Crossman, I believe. No, he's still out there. But plenty of drivers dropping off and out of the race. Jeffrey DeFast and Jamie Thacker are now first and second in the AM class, as Greg Wood has dropped away as well. So we might be racing once again. Wouter Heijmans is another man to be looking very piggy as the Porsche goes off. That is Johnson. He's done the right thing in terms of trying to avoid those drivers, but he will earn himself a drive-through penalty for his trouble. Just too late on the brakes there. But I do wonder if this will get canned, because plenty of drivers coming back having been disconnected. Lee Colpitts coming in for a rather different reason in the BMW. So he's in the pits because of an accident. Vaclav Pospisil was another man to have disconnected and reconnected. So I would suggest that we are going to be restarting, because plenty of drivers have dropped out. And whilst I'm not 100% on this, I can see that there is a little bit of noise. So let's see what the admin decide to do here. We'll try and see if we can get a battle just for the moment. Marcolino is actually right behind Chris Gedman. So Chris Gedman now has a bit of defending to do for what is currently P10. As the Italian driver now has dropped back by a few seconds. It's now 1.4 seconds back. It's actually got Luke Richings to defend from as well. So all going off the battle towards the sharp end of the silver class. Jack Gaudet in fourth is away and gone in the lead, as a few more drivers look like they might be dropping out as well. So I can't think that they won't can it, to be brutally honest with you. But let's see what they all decide to do. As if we can potentially take a look at the Discord now, see if there's anything going on there. Try and see if we can give you as much information as we possibly can. As the Sunday announcement says that no, that's nothing there, except a lot of drivers have disconnected. So we'll see. Yeah, plenty of drivers have just been disconnected, including, as Marco Lino actually spins off, there's contact between himself and Luke Richings. And yeah, plenty of drivers have now disconnected. So we shall see what's going on here. There's further collisions there between, that is Wouter Heijmans, and he's gone into Darren Townsend, I do believe. And now he's got to wait for his safe return. It's not Darren Townsend, but who has he gone through and into? But it looked all a little bit unsavoury there from Wouter Heijmans. We'll just see who's disconnected. Jack Barnett actually disconnected previously as well. Heijmans retires and returns to the garage. And here's Jack Gaudet, who is at the top once again of the silver class. We're 20 minutes into the race. Jared Vermeulen leads by 7 seconds. All been a little bit more serene for the South African. And Daniel Crossman in second position, unable to mount much of a challenge. We'll see if there is any kind of communication to what we're doing here. So if you bear with me, ladies and gentlemen, Paul Fiddler meanwhile up into sixth position, so it's an improvement there for the Ferrari reserve driver. And he is now by the way clear of Jeffrey DeFass. DeFass in the AM Plus had Scaff Harvey go past. Harvey benefiting from having not disconnected, and he will now obviously gain a few positions where he hadn't previously been able to do so, courtesy of those drivers having disconnected. He's now down in 29th. The Colpit's out circulating again. Backlash Poshwashil is back and circulating again. Greg Wood and Owen Harris are back in the lobby. Jack Barnett back in the lobby, and I wonder what they'll do, whether they'll restart it from 25 minutes in or what have you. But certainly something's gone wrong with the lobby here. We'll see. We'll keep you as updated as we possibly can. That's Serafino Gabino in 11th. He's currently 4th in class. Alexander Kalugin in 3rd, doing a stellar job, the Russian, although albeit with a bit of an attritional rate. I think it's fair to say, but in 3rd position, the Russian, a bit of a return to form for Alexander Kalugin. Mark Librus-Tully's another man to have disconnected. Yeah, Woods disconnected twice actually since he returned to the pits. So we shall see if anything further goes on. Certainly a few pros. There's only 4 pros left circulating in the top 4. And then you have to go back all the way to Josh Clayton. Gareth Harvey then obviously in 27th is another. So Clayton in 25th is actually 5th in class, as a few more drivers disconnect. So we shall see now. With 20 minutes to go, we shall see what's going on halfway through the race, although I suspect this might be canned with the drivers now. Further drivers actually come back into the lobby. Confusion reigns as Bruce Tully now rejoins. I think that's why he's ended up 20th, 22nd. He'll have to wait another minute, like everybody else has to see what will actually transpire. So, quick rundown of the lead. That is Jared Vermeulen in first position. He's 8.5 seconds clear. Daniel Crossman. Andrew Eden is in third position. You can see in the Lexus, just go through the Curva Grande. That is the Bentley of Jack Gaudet in fourth position. He is leading the silver class by a long chalk, it must be said, over Paul Vidler. Vidler is in fifth position in Pro, the last of the pros to be circulating, having not crashed at the start. Jeffrey DeFass is sixth and leads the AM class, with Chris Gebman in seventh and Jamie Thacker in eighth. Gebman second in silver, and Thacker second in the AM class. It's Alexander Klugen in third. He's just ahead of Serafino Gabino. He's 6 seconds clear of the Italian, in third position in class, 9th overall. Gabino 4th in silver and 10th overall. Marco Lino is in 11th position, in 5th in class, with Sam Greaves in 12th and Luke Richings 13th. Jordan Marshall 14th as the Silvers reign supreme in the mid-pack, with Terry Tierney, who started from the pit lane, in 15th. It's Richard Gibbon in 16th, having recovered from a pretty poor start. He's got Dale Kelleher right behind Darren Townsend. They're fighting over 17th, so that is third in the AM class that's being contested there by Kelleher and Darren Townsend. Now, we've got a bit more of a battle behind, actually. Renard Serfontaine is actually going after Darren Townsend. Serfontaine having a pretty disastrous second race, having got to the podium earlier on. He's not been able to make any kind of inroads. Actually does have plenty of damage at the front of that Ferrari. He is going to pass Townsend, though, the Ferrari driver in the silver class. And that's going to be Darren Davies then fighting with, fighting just behind to stay with those. He's 20th at the moment. He's just ahead, 4 seconds of Big L Silver. That's Lee Colpitts leaving the pits after a crash and a disconnection earlier on. James O'Leary is in 22nd overall, with Vian Kruger 23rd. It was all going a lot better for the South African, who's had a few trials and tribulations. You can see there, having had an accident in that Ford Mustang. It's Matt Johnson in 24th, ahead of the stricken on lap number 1 Josh Clayton. Gareth Harvey is in 26th, there to Posh Bashil and Bruce Tully. Bruce Tully is back out there. He disconnected from what was 6th position, as plenty of drivers have done. Greg Wood, still a have disconnected down at the bottom. So was Jack Barnett and Owen Harris. They were all at the head of the AM class. So let's see what's going on here, because there have been plenty of drivers that have disconnected. I think it is a lobby session, but I think we are going to continue. So 9.8 seconds between the leading duo. That's Vaclav Postrichel recovering in the Porsche to come back out onto the racetrack, I think, having disconnected as well. Try and see if we can find you a battle towards the sharp end. I think the sharpest end battle was going to be Marco Lino and Sam Greaves, but Sam Greaves, as you can see, is going nowhere fast, having spun at Ascari. So he will be rejoins and rejoins well. Good rejoin there to make sure that he doesn't hit. I think that's Vian Kruger coming through, and he makes sure that he rejoins just behind the South African. So that's good rejoining all around, but that's not what he wanted to be praised for. Jeffrey DeFast, meanwhile, in 6th position and leading the AM charge. He's just ahead of Chris Gebman. Chris Gebman has got Jamie Thacker right behind him. Chris Gebman is 2nd in silver, and Jamie Thacker is in 2nd in the AM class. It's Alexander Glugin just behind, who is in 3rd. And the McLaren driver doing a stellar job. Previously posted results of 2 10th places, and as soon as I say that, Russian goes off and into the gravel, but I think that he's been able to recover, and so there won't be any positions lost, only pride. Serafino Gabino is competing in the top 10, but he's 4th in the silver class, so a good day's work for the Italian if this result is going to count. So Marco Lino behind in 11th, he's doing a good job as well in the Porsche. So let's see what's going on here. So we are going to continue, and it's Andrew Eden now in 3rd position in the Lexus, and he's got a bit of a gap ahead, isn't he? 6.8 seconds between himself and Crossman, who is a further 11 seconds back nearly from Jared Vermeulen. So Vermeulen is going to wrap up the championship, the overall championship, which will actually take you through now. The overall championship, which is the one that they have, that there's been a bit more emphasis placed on before this set of results was posted. It's Jared Vermeulen is actually up to 722 points because of the way that the overall championship is worked out. It's a lot different to the AM and the Pro and the Silvers, etc., because of obviously there's a lot more cars in it. But 722 points he's on. That is 65 points clear of Daniel Crossman. Crossman's going to finish 2nd by a distance because he's a further 115 points clear of Marcelin Brustulli. Brustulli It's got a further 84 points on Wouter Heijmans. Wouter Heijmans is fourth in the overall standings, with Demian van der Waal currently in fifth. Van der Waal unable to race today. Morgan Grace is in sixth in the overall standings. He's just ahead of Renard Serfontein. Serfontein leading the silver charge, isn't he? But he is in seventh overall. But he's only 9 points clear overall of Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown, who's unfortunately for him, anyways, older, is now going to come back in. That was a bit of a race horribilis, if you will, for the Scotsman with the injured ankle, which means he's not able to participate today. Andrew Eden's in ninth overall. He's 390 points, and he's only 3 points clear for this round of races. Ahead of Josh Clayton, Maclap Boschbagil in 11th, ahead of Serafino Gabino in 12th, with Greg Wood, the leader of the AM class, in 13th. He's got a gap over Opmanel Fedawi, who's been missing the last couple of races, but Chris Gebman is in 15th overall, ahead of Jamie Thacker. That is the second AM driver that we've seen in there. There's Luke Richings in 17th, ahead of Lee Colpitts in 18th, and Richard Gearman in 19th. Gearman so often unable to put two races together, but when he's been quick, he has been electric. It's Jordan Marshall in 20th, ahead of Steve Desert overall in 21st. Aaron Townsend 22nd overall, ahead of Terry Tierney and Jeffrey DeFast. DeFast a much stronger showing in the AM races than the overall races. His bad races have been less bad than everybody else, with Muckalina 25th, ahead of Michael Coppens 26th, and Harris 27th, ahead of Johnny Sharp in 28th, who's been struggling in the Pro Championships, so often have much more pace than he's been able to show. It's Redlock Steve in 29th, ahead of Miguel Silva. Maximilian Basler in 31st. James O'Leary 32nd, ahead of Jack Barnett 33rd. Galugin, as we were talking about earlier on, 34th. Not been able to get it together overall, but when he has been quick, as he is now in third position in silver, he has been very quick. He's just ahead of Fabio Travaglioni, who's been in and out of the series so far. Ben Kruger 36th, ahead of Darren Davies 37th, Dale Keller 38th, ahead of Maximilian Vorlebek, Paul Trotman and Ashley Gore. So that is your overall standings. That is worked out by just simply a straight line wherever they're finished, and the worst of their races are dropped, worst of the score are dropped, as is the case in the Class Championship. So Vermeulen is going to wrap up both championships. The South African driver wearing car number 1, which is normally seen as a bit of cockiness within the sim racing world, but it's just a matter of fact. Whenever the South African turns up to the Sunday series, he's won so many races this season, and it's going to be once again business as usual for the South African. He is 12 seconds now clear of Daniel Crossman, who's in normal circumstances you would say probably would be doing enough to win the race, but he is second, and he's 7.5 seconds clear of rejuvenated Andrew Eden in third. The Lexus driver 7.5 seconds off the pace. But a word for Jack Cadet, the reserve in the Bentley, who has been strong on a couple of occasions when he's been seen, but has been really strong today. He won the race earlier on fair and square in the silver class, and was in the top 5 in that particular race, but in this one he's a bit more of a lonely fourth. He's been certainly very combative when he's had to be, and has passed a lot of good drivers. Bernard Serfontein is another man to have disconnected, so his wretched race 2 goes on. He's now back to 26th. There's quite a few drivers that have dropped out. You can see Harris Grove Wood 32nd, 31st. Jack Barnett is back out on track, to his credit, because well, you might as well, mightn't you? But he is a good 5 laps down Eyeball Trotman, who's pitted with crash damage, I do believe. But see, the rather striking Mercedes, a lovely looking car, isn't it? Black and yellow with just a little bit of green on there. It's a credit to the fashion sense of Paul Trotman, but he's painted that rather well. He's got what I think is Jared Vermeulen behind just to go and lap him. He has indeed let the South African driver through, as I suspect that we've got roughly 5, well, thereabouts 5 laps to go. I would suggest either 5 or 6 laps to go for Jared Vermeulen to begin his coronation of the class and overall champion. Jeffrey DeFast, a word for Jeffrey DeFast, because yes, he has inherited the lead, but he was towards the sharp end anyway, and he's not missed a beat really. He's been certainly very strong in race number 2, and in 6th position for an AM driver, whichever way you get it, is certainly very good going. Lee Colpitts once again disconnected, so certainly the server playing up throughout the race. We'll see if there's any standings for the reserves to go through. No standings there, as a lot of reserves actually end up getting promoted into the championship if other drivers don't show up quite so often. So here is Jeffrey Device. He's got 6 seconds on Chris Gedman, but Gedman has no challenge from behind really, with Jamie Thacker in 8th position. Alexander Kalugin in 9th, is in 3rd in the silver class. He's got a bit of a challenge coming from Serafino Gabino. She's been chipping away recently, the Italian. He's now 1.4 seconds off of the back of Alexander Kalugin, but we'll see now if the Italian can. He's on pad, as you can see from the way that the wheels are turning, but the Italian doing a good job despite that limitation. And in 4th position, he's lost a couple of tenths to Kalugin, but Kalugin might be vulnerable. He has just gone slightly wide, might be vulnerable to attack from Serafino Gabino. We can see now Marco Lino in 5th in the silver class. He's in 11th overall. The chromed Porsche, certainly very striking for its simplicity, but he's got... That's not Luke Richings, that's Johnny Sharp. Johnny Sharp has had a bit of a wretched race anyway, disconnect or no disconnect, with some damage sustained on lap number 1. Terry Tierney is having a go at Luke Richings, as you know, not quite. He's about a second behind. He's got Jordan Marshall behind as well, so we'll keep an eye on this battle, as with the somewhat truncated, depleted and difficult race, Marco Bristol is actually out there as well, so we are going to continue and finish this race as is. There'll be no red flags or anything of the sort. We're going to finish as we are. So Terry Tierney is a second back from Luke Richings, and Jordan Marshall is a further second behind. The Frenchman in 14th hasn't always put together a run of results, but moving up from the AM class very recently, it's always difficult to then move into the silver class. Suddenly everything, you do the same driving and you do the same, get the same results overall, and suddenly it's looked upon a little bit differently. But Marshall in 14th doing a good job. Tierney is he's getting 4 tenths on Luke Richings going into the first corner. The Aston Martin always supreme on the brakes as well, isn't it? So should be an interesting battle as and when they do get together, because Richings, as you can see in the Ferrari, is carrying just a bit of damage with 6 minutes to go. This one might not be over, although Gabino has also caught... He's taken a few more tenths out of Alexander Kalugin, so we should keep an eye on that, because that is the final battle, or the final position, sorry, for 3rd in class. So we'll see now Tierney going through the layers modes now, see if he can line up the Ferrari in front of him. That is Luke Richings. Richings now looking like he might have a bit of a fight to keep keep in the top 12. Tierney now gets behind into the slipstream, only 3 tenths behind the Ferrari. If he can have a run at Ascari, he might just be able to put him out of position. He goes to the outside, but Richings has it covered going into Ascari. That should be that for the moment, although they'll go through Ascari, make sure that they don't take too much care, make sure that they don't get in each other's way, and in down the back straight. I don't think he's going to be close enough, is he, Tierney, to get past into the Parabolica? But if he sets him up right, the Aston Martin, then there could be a run. Cabino's dropped a further few tenths back from Kalugin, so that race looks like it's run for the podium class in silver, although never say never. Kalugin has got to keep the thing on the island, but here's Tierney now. He is 4 tenths of a second behind, so you can see Richings tries to break the toe, moves back over, makes his one move back to the racing line. The Aston Martin's going to go for it down the inside, as he not quite not able to get the move done, although they both go quite late in the braking zone. But Tierney's not going to cause any issues there for the Abin, the man from the southwest of England. The Irishman is he's a pest, but he's not a problem just yet. Aaron Townsend, meanwhile, fighting with Dale Kelleher. Dale Kelleher, a rejuvenated 3rd, albeit in more fortuitous circumstances than I'm sure he'd like. Townsend recovering from what was a difficult start to the race, almost by default, really. The Welshman in 4th position. He's got a good gap over Mark Davies, as well as off goes Dale Kelleher. He'll have to cede a sufficient amount of time in order to be able to keep that, one would imagine, because Townsend might be straight on the phone. Kelleher did gain a little bit of time there, didn't he? But I think there he is, slowly bleeding that time out. You can see Townsend is getting onto the back. He was second behind, crossed the line, and I suspect that Kelleher now, yeah, you can see he's bled a little bit of time, hasn't he? So I think that is all going to be ruled as absolutely fair now, with Townsend only with a couple of laps to go, you would imagine, with where is the leader? I think from Newland is currently coming out around the Lesmo. So this will be 2 laps to go this time around, you would have thought, because 3 minutes to go. It's not going to take over a minute and a half to get down there. So it's going to be 2 laps to go when Vermeulen crosses the line this time round to be coronated as the champion of both the Pro class and the overall class. So the Ferrari driver will have nothing to race for but pride a little bit later on. There is a pass going on ahead, but we'll try and see who that might be. Harvey a little bit further back as James O'Leary goes down. It might have been Clayton. It is Clayton on Matt Johnson. Johnson in the Porsche has given as good as he's got, hasn't he? He's had a few battles, and he's had to serve a drive-through for missing the chicane, although in fairness to him, he was trying to avoid a collision. Now the Porsche down the straight, the Mustang down the inside. This is for 19th overall, so one of Clayton's most memorable races, but down the inside he goes. He does get the move done, and that is 19th for the Ford driver. He's on a bit of a recovery drive. He also had, not had connectivity issues. You have to read in their laps. Johnson gets on the grass, actually nearly wipes out the South African, but no dramas there. So we go back to Townsend. Townsend now 0.5 of a second behind Dale Kelleher. Kelleher in 15th overall and 3rd in class. Mancunian, who started the season with an injury to his finger. It was actually quite a nasty injury, nearly put him out of action for a lot longer than just the one race, but it always meant he was on the back foot and unable to get practice in whilst that finger healed up, because it was one of the more important fingers for a sim race. So unable to get any practice in. He kind of lost his way a little bit, but he's recovered, and whilst luck has not been on his side, Kelleher is now in a position where he can take a rather fortuitous 3rd position. So some may say that he's evened himself out just a little bit. But Kelleher now going into the final corner for the penultimate time, I do believe, with Vermeulen about to start his last lap. Car 663 is another drive through for track limits, and that is Johnson, who I think has arbitrarily retired, hasn't he? Having left the track. That is Vaclav Pospisil just circling round, getting out of the way of both Kelleher and Townsend. Townsend, though, unable to make any impression on the straight. The one thing the McLaren doesn't have is straight line speed, so difficult really for the McLaren to make any impact without Kelleher going off. So leader is starting the final lap, so Vermeulen will stay with this battle actually for a little bit later, or for a little bit longer, because Vermeulen will cross the line and will win, which we'll cross to a little bit later on as and when that becomes relevant. But Townsend at the moment unable to make as much inroads as Kelleher perhaps feared he might. The McLaren ahead, or McLaren behind, so we're not able, and you can see actually misses his braking point, although so does Kelleher. Off he goes. Kelleher now, is he going to be in danger going into the Lesmo? Townsend goes to the outside, but Kelleher there getting a little bit greedy on the curves through the Variante Roggia, and now he's got a bit of a problem on his hands, because Townsend can have a look. Is he going into Lesmo? That's not going to do anything except slow him down, and Kelleher survives for another corner, but Pospisil behind, just getting out of the way, trying to get a watching brief really. But Townsend now in the slipstream, down the back straight we go, going into the Ascari chicane. He's not going to be able to make his move here, but he can certainly set him up. McLaren not blessed with straight line speed, but if he can get a good run out of Ascari, then he might be able to, and he does get a good run, and he does climb over the curves quite a bit. That's Jordan Marshall recovering, so he's having off the Frenchman, and now that might actually hamper Townsend, because Frenchman's recovering and he just slot back in behind them, so they're going to be 14th, 15th, rather than 15th, 16th. That's not going to matter so much, but Kelleher now holds on, doesn't he, through the Parabolica. Reminded this has one more lap to go, this battle. Going to cross to Jared Vermeulen, who's behind in short order, but down the front straight we go for the last time. Kelleher looks like he's got a few tenths of a second on. We will now flick to Jared Vermeulen. I don't know why Marshall's flashing, but he is. Now, across the line we go for Jared Vermeulen to complete the victory and complete the championship in both the pro class and overall. Well deserved for the South African, who has been once again the class of the field. But we are going to switch back to the battle for third in the AM class, because Townsend has gone off a little bit. He's lost a little bit of time. This is coming up to the Roger chicane, which is where the Crossman Kelleher had a few of his problems. Richard Gearman is another man to have hit strife, isn't he? He's a little bit further back, Richard Gearman, and unable to complete the race. So I suspect that he's had an off going into the first chicane. I think actually he might have got a bit confused, but he might have run out of fuel. There is Daniel Crossman. He's second, and Reedon is in third ahead of Good Day, who is fourth in the silver class. An excellent reserve stint for the Brits. He is in for a second victory in 2 races, with Jeffrey DeFarce looking to complete AM class victory. Paul Vidler comes in 5th place overall. He's 4th in pro, as plenty of pros unfortunately had the connectivity issue that befell them. Jeffrey DeFarce is in 6th position, and an excellent win in the AM class is Chris Getman in 2nd in the silver class, 7th overall. Alexander Kalugin will take a podium for 8th position and 3rd in class. Serafino Gabino will be 9th and 4th. Jamie Thacker for 2nd in the AM class. That rejuvenates his championship hopes. Marcolino is in 11th. He crosses the line in the Porsche. That's 5th in class, ahead of Luke Richings in 6th. And Dale Kelleher is just about going to hang on to 3rd in the AM class. He's 13th overall. Darren Townsend will finish 14th. Sporting flash there from Darren Townsend to congratulate his rival. Jordan Marshall is 15th. 7th in the silver class. Terry Tierney comes home in 16th, ahead of Richard Gibbon, who has retired. Darren Davies, another man to have been a lap down, in 18th. Josh Clayton in 19th, ahead of Sam Greaves. And Miguel Silva, Viet Kruger in 22nd, ahead of Gareth Harvey, who was lapped from an instant earlier on. Backlash Boschmichel is in 24th, ahead of Rinart Serfontaine and Jack Barnett, who all disconnected. Same with Paul Trotman and Marco Limbrush-Tully, with Greg Wood and Owen Harris the last to be in the lobby. Okay, we should wait just a couple of moments to see if there's anybody who comes in for a post-race chat, but if not, then we will graciously end the recording. And we can see a few drivers there having had a few disconnectivity issues, but it is unfortunately an unfortunate part of sim racing. Let's see if there's any other drivers there to be able to. Yeah, plenty of drivers are reacting in there, but all actually in a pretty decent manner. It must be said, the drivers who were affected are reacting in a pretty good way. Walter Hymans and Morgan Grace, another man to have gone out through connectivity issues. So with Marcel Baskler, Dreadlock Steve, Johnny Sharp had crash damage, and Gordon Brown was unable to take the start with an injury. So with all of that now, no drivers joining us in the party. It just remains for me to say well done to everybody who stayed with us. Thank you for everybody for staying with us, and we will see you for the final round at Indianapolis this time next week. I'll see you then. Take care.